jump up to the top of the brown. Ding dong, call me on my phone. Nice tea, and I'll get my ping pong. This is dead heavy. Can't hear the bass, boom, I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey. Yeah, this beach treated like money. Disco overload, I'm into that. I'm good to go. I'm diamond, you know I glow up. Hey, so let's go. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Hey, shining through the city with a little funky soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. Whoa, bring a friend, join the crowd. Whoever wanna come along. Word up, talk, just move right up the wall. Day or night, sky's the light, so we dance to the breakdown. Ladies and gentlemen, I got the medicine, so you should keep your eyes on the ball. This is getting heavy, can you hear the bass? Boom, I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey, yeah, this bitch ching like money. Disco overload, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm down, you know I glow. And let's go! 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Hey, shining through the city with a little funky soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. Whoa, na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Shining through the city with a little funky soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. Whoa, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na-na, light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, 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 light it up like dynamite. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire, set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. This is so watch me bring the fire, set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. So I'ma light it up like dynamite.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deciphering BTS. You should be able to hear it now. All right. So, yes, we are going to progress into some steps which are a bit more difficult. This is a project we're doing where we are diving deep into BTS's discography, 1 month at a time, one album at a time, maybe some two-parters later on when we get into longer albums. But yes, I have gathered a panel of super intelligent and experienced armies to sort of help balance this out and get their insights. I followed all of these armies for a really long time and followed their threads and seen their takes on Twitter of what's going on in the fandom and in the music, and it has been super helpful this whole time. So I'm super excited to see what they have to say and work with them on this. So let's introduce the panel. We'll start with Anna, who is Magic Shop Books, here today.
After the news that we just got.
All right, and let me just test the audio here. Looks like some folks were having trouble hearing, so let me just look into that. 1 second. I would say light it up again, but I think we're going to light it up quite a bit this week, so have some life goes on while I look into this. 1 second. Stereo mic?
That one's definitely picking up something.
All right. All right, we're back. Hopefully the audio works. Please keep letting me know of any issues you might hear so we can get them fixed. But yes, thank you, Anna, for joining us. Next up on introductions, we have Cecilia. Cecilia, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Cecilia, and I've been a fan of BTS since the Most Beautiful Moment part of life in the Dope era, so back in 2015. Currently, I am one of the team members for Bangtan Scholars, but I usually love to chat anything about branding, marketing, and of course, big hits, amazing business ideas.
All right, perfect. And we also have Courtney joining us. I always say Court because of your username, but it's Courtney.
That's okay. Some people call me that for short. It's fine. But yeah, my name's Courtney. I became an ARMY in early 2015, sort of after being a casual listener for almost a year. Finally decided to go all in. I'm also part of the Bangtan Scholars team with Cecilia, and I do my own website called the BTS Effect, where I post different writings, research type stuff related to BTS. I guess one of my main focus areas is more Bangtan universe stuff and also just general storytelling strategies.
Perfect. And it's always tricky connecting the BU to the music, but there are connections sometimes there. And then we also have Daezy on the panel.
Yes, hello. My name is Daezy. I go by Nijazi329 on Twitter, and I've been in ARMY since 2016 when Cypher's part 1 through 4 grabbed me by the throat and did not let go. I have basically dedicated my account to sort of like discussion around BTS's music in general, but I also have a podcast with my friend Delilah that we call Talk with ARMY, where we talk about like BTS related things when it comes to topics such as, for example, the fandom or just like K-pop discourse in general. So I'm kind of more focused around like discussion and education because that's kind of my niche. But like, yeah, it's been fun.
Hi, I am Luna. I'm definitely the least scholarly out of the panel, but I'm a 2019 SNL Army, so I'm the baby army of the group, technically. I majored in film, dabbled in a lot of marketing, but I just really like BTS music and I like listening to it and I like watching their music videos and picking them apart.
Yes, Luna's our resident baby army. I wanted to get a younger army on the team as well, just so we can get some insights from some fresh blood. So thanks, Luna. And last but not least, Omer is joining us as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Omer. I've been in ARMY. Well, I've been into BTS since around early 2018. So somewhere between Love Yourself, Her, and Tear. I saw Not Today and just Grapevine was just too much. But I consider myself an ARMY since I joined Twitter. So it would be around Love Yourself Answer. So August 2018. I have a podcast on YouTube called Planet Army, or a channel on YouTube called Planet Army, and a podcast called Everything Goes, where we talk about everything Army related. So if it's interviewing people like Daezy and One in an Army and Research BTS, or talking about Army events that happened, and I now have a Army History 101 series as well. So it's really fun. It's really cool. It's a really nice community, and all the the channel itself is monetized, and all the money that it makes goes into purchasing albums and going to the funding basis accounts. So watching the videos there actually helps the comeback. And yeah, that's it. Hi, everyone.
Yes, I think I've actually streamed a few of your playlists, the Raising Money playlist. So thank you for putting that together.
Yeah, it was all army power.
Yes.
Someone came up with the idea and we just ran with it.
I love it. Yeah, so we have quite a diverse panel with armies from lots of backgrounds. So I'm really excited to see what everyone's takes are on the same subject. So let's dive into it. We're starting with 2COOL4SKOOL, which, in case you didn't know, was BTS's debut album. There was only one version, which is hard to imagine now. And there were actually a total of 9 tracks, 7 on most platforms, but there are 2 hidden tracks on the physical album, which we're going to look at a little bit later. And it was released June 12th, 2013. I think what's interesting is I've always, associated June 13th with their debut because and so I just thought that that's when the album came out. But then typing this out, no, it's actually June 12th, and then they debuted on music shows the next day. So this is the track list here, a nice mini album. There's a word for that, isn't there? LP? No, it's the opposite. Anyone have the name for a small mini album? EP. Perfect. Yeah, EP. Okay, perfect. Extended play, is that what it stands for?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Need a music producer here on the panel to help me out. Perfect. So what I wanted to talk about here is a little bit about the place that BTS was when making this album. It was their first album, so obviously there was a lot riding on it, and there was a lot of pressure to get it put together. So in those 6 months leading up, because I feel like that's about where the lineup was finalized versus when the album was released. So looking into that beginning era, what all do you think was going on in those 6 months? I mean, obviously a lot of practicing and training, but as far as album prep, what do you think that looked like for them? Right. Yeah, I think there was, oh, I cannot hear the speaker. Okay, let me see. Why is this? Let me add a little audio boost here for our panelists. There we go. Okay, that should be fixed moving forward.
Can you hear me now?
Let's see what they say. Yes.
Okay. People are saying yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's fixed. I think something dropped out on the back end, so we should be good, and Honest should be good as well. Yeah, I noticed some of the logs actually from, I want to say January, February time. RM was talking exactly about what you were saying about how there was conversations with Bang PD about his rapping skill level, and I just feel like that must have been really, really difficult to hear at the time. He mentioned how, he still felt he had a lot to live up to. And I think in general, there was a really strong sense to prove themselves, which is definitely reflective in the lyrics and in the sound of the album, which is always fun.
Yeah, I think one of the things to really keep in mind is that before, like a couple of years before BTS debuted, a lot of the music within the K-pop industry was like very hip-hop. So you had like G-Dragon, Big Bang, EXO, Winner. So I think during that process, like BTS with who they are and their like roots, especially with RM and Suga doing hip-hop, really like sort of gave them that like leeway to enter. But just as we were mentioning earlier, I think Bang PD was like telling them like, what do you want to write? What are you thinking these days? Like, is there anything you want to say? So basically, along with the help of P-Dog, he was able to like basically help them cultivate that narrative of who they were into their songs.
Right. I think that's something that's very important to BTS music, is their ability to tie in true feelings with this overall theme and concept. And sometimes I think sonically it can seem a little like a lot because they cross genres so much. But generally speaking, they're always true to what the actual story is in the lyrics, versus the sound, which is also nice to see, I think.
Yeah, and that
Also,
Oh, go ahead.
I recently watched them react to their old performances from their debut. And they talked about how first the training for the dancing was so difficult and on point. Like they checked like even though they're all different heights, they checked like where their arms are landing so that everything looks really polished. And even more than that, they practiced if something what to do if something bad happens, like if your mic falls, if you lose a shoe, if you mess up, like all these little things. They put a lot of effort into practicing these steps. And they talked about how they were surprised that other groups weren't doing that. How they put so much effort into always being mentally prepared for something bad to happen and how to handle that, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, and it shows in their performance. Their early performances are so clean, and I think even now they still joke about, oh, like we're not like that anymore. We're not this in sync anymore, because they definitely were going out of their way to make sure every detail was perfect. So I'm sure that 6 months was very intense and very, very busy. A lot of the logs are filmed around 3-4 a.m. So that definitely goes to show how long they were working on this. One thing, go ahead.
Sorry, I feel like mine's a little bit delayed, so I keep like cutting in.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Feel free. Cut in whenever.
I think with like the, just mentioning things like the heavy revisions and stories and whatnot. I think what a lot of people maybe didn't realize, at the time, because I went back and read a couple of reviews. There weren't that many, obviously, because they were new. But I went back and dug for a couple of reviews while I was preparing for this, and just reading people's, perception at the time of how, they probably didn't quite know what to make of it and couldn't have known at the time with this, heavy focus on putting authentic stories into stuff. But we know from like later interviews with Bang PD talking on it, there's a Korean show called Good Insight where he talks about how, the thing he told them from the very start was always, I want you to put your stories into this. Right. I want this to be true to you. And then there's some other, old interview that references like files 1 to 29 for No More Dream. And that's a lot of revision, for one track. and it was important because it was going to be their title track. But I think that's just probably something that people didn't realize at the time that maybe we see better now with hindsight.
Yeah, for sure. Someone mentioned in the chat, and I think you were sort of touching on it, so I'm just going to bring it up, about them coming from a small company but coming up with genuine hip-hop, and not only the trendy hip-hop that was popular at the time. And that's true. There were several groups that were doing hip-hop style, but it was definitely, I don't know what the word is.
Manufactured.
Yes, that might be the
Well,
the
it was
phrase.
more just, it was a concept.
Yeah.
Yes, conceptual, like this is what hip-hop
You know, like we
is.
have, yeah, conceptual hip hop.
Yeah,
They
so
talk about it, like when we get to lyrics, they'll talk about it more probably, but back then, like if you wanted to put someone in a group but they weren't good at singing and they or dancing so much, then they would end up as the rapper. And it's not like rap music. It's so like the original rap music is so authentic, and you write your own lyrics and you speak your truth, and to see it go from that to something that's then it's manufactured, it's written for you, it's not necessarily your truth but something that someone tells you to say, and you practice your diction, and it's still hard work. It's not easy to rap. You have to have breath control and all that, but it's not the same. It's not the true meaning of being a rapper. So see a lot of groups do it as a concept, not as true rappers. I think BTS were very different in that scene. They had a lot to say, and they said it.
yeah, I think you nailed it with that. I can't see, but I'm nodding vigorously. So, and you're right. They are gonna touch on it later. So we'll continue that as well. One more thing before we move on is I wanted to ask, why do you think we had hidden tracks to begin with? I feel like obviously most songs are meant to be digital, or are consumed digitally even in 2013. So why did they include these hidden tracks that are still nowhere to be found on official platforms, streaming platforms?
I think like BTS are, the way I see it, they're an analog group in a digital age. So they do a lot of this extra stuff that no group does. They have like their albums are concepts, and instead of being like one song or the base of the group, like their albums are storytelling, and they have like all these tiny moments like in Shadow when it's actually the song played backwards, the beats played backwards because it's something that you look inward. They do all these tiny things that are so conceptual on a personal level, and when you put a hidden track in an album, it's like you're saying, I know it doesn't completely fit the story that the album says, but it's a part of me that I want to share with you. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it also shows their commitment to physical albums, which is really something special, I think, in this day and age. So I always appreciate that. And on the note of their physical albums, let's talk about the actual album package. Since this was the first album, they kept it pretty simple, with a CD and a photo book, and then there was the little Hip Hop Monsters postcard, and I think just the first couple hundred copies actually came with Polaroids, and then that was it. It was just this work right here. It was just this album, and it's so interesting for me to see just one version. I wonder what multiple versions would have looked at it. But yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on, because, you know, an album is or the album packaging is supposed to sort of set the tone for the album. So just looking at it, what tone is this setting? What do you guys think?
I definitely think that with like the type of like packaging that they had, they wanted to make sure that people understood that like they were serious business. They just look dangerous. I feel like that's the type of concept they were going for. And obviously like with their concept photos and everything, they were trying to, it almost like feels like a kind of rebellious kid sort of thing. Like, you know, the concept that they were going for. Like they were the kind of, I don't know, I guess like kind of like the outcast of society trying to bring up those who are underrepresented. Like that's the kind of concept I got from like their whole too cool for school kind of thing.
Yeah, they definitely look way too cool for school, personally. And this branding here, this logo, is really important, and they use this quite a bit for several years. And Cecilia, I know you mentioned you worked with, or you work with branding. What do you think about this vest logo here?
Yeah, so for anybody that doesn't really know who have recently joined the Army fandom, so 3 months actually before BTS's scheduled debut, the first ever logo was actually discovered inside a promotional leaflet of another K-pop group called 2AM in their album One Spring Day. And from that promotional leaflet, it let fans know about who BTS was, and it described them being this hip-hop idol group who would debut and would be like an all-around idol. Plus, it gave as well links of their already self-produced songs that they've done before. And on this logo or this promotional leaflet, it had their name, BTS, and it was also very much in line with what their first album would be, which is very bold, and as well as that the actual production or the art designer is called Studio XXX or Studio XXX, which is located in Seoul, and they were the ones that do albums and other promotional stuff, and they design the concepts since BTS's debut album. No, actually, the latest album that they did was the Most Beautiful Moment in Life, Part 2. Sorry, no, the BTS You Never Walk Alone, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. That was me. I muted myself. Yes, no, I agree with what they both said about the concept being very stand and fight for what you believe in. I think it's a little literal thinking now, but this vest on the cover of the album was sort of like them donning the bulletproof vest with their music as well. So I think that was a nice touch. And the concept photos here. What's interesting is with I don't want to say little, but by comparison, looking at so many different K-pop albums now and all of the goodies that they include, it almost is interesting that they included the hidden tracks on this physical album while not having a lot of extra goodies and things like that. So I thought that was just an interesting point as well. So yeah, I think the album did a good job of prepping people for what they were about to get into, which I think is pretty nice. it served its purpose.
I think it's also slightly intimidating, just a little bit. Like, you just look at it, it's very, you have the bulletproof vest, you know, on the front, but then you also have like the hip hop monster like drawings like in it. It's just so, the dichotomy is very funny to me.
Yeah, the
Me
hip hop
too,
monsters are
It's like
cute.
raw and aggressive, but then these little hip hop monsters.
Yeah, exactly.
Which it
I,
makes sense for them too, because they were very cute and very tough at the same time.
I actually talked about it when I talked my podcast about We Are Bulletproof the Eternal. I can't find it there anymore, but whatever. BTS, with them being bulletproof, I am positive that's not where it comes from, and this is an anecdote as a material engineer. This is something tiny for me. Well, I don't know if you know, but a bulletproof vest actually has 2 layers. One is ceramic, and the other is really, really soft. And the point of it is that when you shoot a bullet, it will hit the ceramic will break, and will take on it all the impact, and the fabric will protect you, and that way the person inside will stay safe. So I always see like BTS in the start of their career, they were the ceramic. They were there to protect, and they took on the bullets, and they almost pretended to be so strong when at that time they were very vulnerable because they came from a poor company. They had everything going against them, but they stood there to take those bullets. And over time, with the army growing and they're getting more and more support and more success, it became that softer layer as well. Like they had the whole thing to protect both themselves and the people that they are speaking for.
I love that
So,
so
yeah.
much. Yeah, that
So
was
beautiful.
really beautiful. Yeah.
So cute. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's perfect. And
Yeah,
you know,
just
go ahead.
just to add on, when BTS debuted, they did present themselves at their showcase for the fans and for the media. And during that event, J-Hope actually revealed what BTS's name stood for, and he replied that the current generation is going through many hardships in life, and as well as facing a lot of prejudice and suppression. So hence, BTS wants to protect the generation's thoughts and values from the prejudice that pours down on like bullets. Quote from a magazine that was there.
I love it. And they did. Self-fulfilling Bangtan, as always. I was also just thinking on the whole bulletproof vest. I think it's also probably helped them, now that I'm looking back, but wearing these super strong and untouchable personas probably helped them go. I mean, there was a lot of bad times, you know, early on, bad things that they had to go through, things they had to see, you know, whether it be ugly comments or rude seniors or producers, things like that. I'm sure that the bulletproof concept helped them as well to sort of navigate through those times. Oh, that's really beautiful.
It was almost prophetic, like.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of moments like that. Oh, go ahead, Omer.
It's like saying that if you need like a boost in confidence before like a big meeting or a big event, you should do the Superman pose for like a minute. That will give you confidence. So it's the same. It's like putting out that bulletproof mentality will give you the confidence to take on the world and like fake it till you make it sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so as well. I do the same stuff too. Okay, so let's let's actually get into the album. So we're going to go in order, and we're going to listen to every single track, and then, well, not all at once. We're going to listen to them one at a time, and then just talk about it. So let me make sure I've got this set up right, and let's just enjoy reliving this. So 1 second.
We're now going to progress to some steps which are a bit more difficult. Ready, set, and begin.
Bangtan Scholars. Too cool for school. Too cool for school. 10대 20대 대신해 쉽게 우리 얘기를 해. Think that.
I'm a huge fan of the graphics there at the end. Very hardcore. So that was intro 2COOL4SKOOL featuring DJ Frizz. So let me pull up, even though there wasn't much lyrics, we can at least look at this. So BTS is used intros pretty much on almost every single album since this one. Why do you think the intros were so important to them, just generally speaking? Like, they were always try to have one, and then later on paid more attention onto who was in charge of each one, that sort of thing. Where does that importance come from, do you think? Why?
Well, I think it definitely intros themselves like set the tone for the whole album, right? So intros are very important in that sense, that they're setting like the stage for what's about to come and the rest of the music that we're going to hear. So I think it's pretty cool that they started out with, you know, this intro, and then going forward in other albums had, you know, a certain member like take lead and kind of set. It's basically just setting the tone. You know, it's important. It's incredibly important.
Yeah, I agree. It's also just kind of makes for a good structure, you know, when they bring in intros and then interludes and outros. Later on, those, like you mentioned, you know, will focus on specific members, and before they were doing solo songs, that gave them a way to, you know, put the focus on someone who is one of seven. You know, you might not be able to put that focus on in other songs. So I think it's, you know, just a good way to do that, but also a good way to structure an overall album by starting like that.
I agree. Like, for me, like, I personally feel like I treat BTS's albums like essays, where you have the introduction, which basically sort of gives you like a little taster of what's to come, and then the whole body of that album, which I would treat like the body of an essay, and then like the conclusion, a good way to just close a chapter. I feel like the way that BTS constructs their albums is like extremely cohesive in a way that you don't really see that often, especially with like music groups in general.
I think it's also. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's also worth noticing that there is just so much about BTS in general, but especially this album, this EP, that reminds me so much of mixtape culture in hip hop. In hip hop, especially around that time when they released their first EP, there still is this culture of rappers, unsigned rappers, independent rappers releasing mixtapes hosted by DJs. I noticed that in this intro, the DJs mentioned in the credits, like it's very popular. There used to be DJs like DJ Drama and others that would host mixtapes for rappers, and they would have the intro that would set the tone for the entire mixtape, like where they would present themselves and say what they're gonna be, what they're gonna do with their career, and etc. So, like you guys said, of course, their albums, BTS's albums, always have this linearity, like intro, development, conclusion. But for this album especially, I think that there's a very hip hop element to it as well for this intro.
Yeah, that's a really interesting tidbit that I actually hadn't considered, was the mixtape impact, because for me, I thought it was really interesting that they chose to do an intro and an outro and an interlude on an EP. You know, there's only 7 tracks public to the album, so I always thought that was like, wow, you know, have an intro to just even such a short story. And here, you know, if we look at the lyrics, they talk here exactly what is going to happen, or what their concept is, as Hobie explained it. We tell our story in a carefree way on behalf of those in their 10s and 20s. And it's interesting. I feel like they would not include that age limitation nowadays. They pretty much speak for armies of all ages, I'd say, now.
Yes.
In retrospect. I had this DJ Frizz. I had looked him up just to see if there was anything interesting about his background to mention, and I did find something. He signed to an independent record label that was co-founded by by hip hop duo group Dynamic Duo, which was popular in Korea at the time. Or, well, excuse me, not at the time, like 10 years earlier, but still was very popular. And Hobie's recommended a couple of his songs, I think. And so I just think that's kind of endearing to me, the idea that they might have been really excited to get this specific DJ because, you know, he was at a label that they thought was cool. And he actually worked with Yoongi later on and August D on the intro for his first album. So yeah, and I do want to touch on the loyalty to these creators later, but here, let's take a look at the credits here. Nothing too crazy since it's just the intro, but I just thought that was fun, the way it was labeled Scratch. DJ is Scratch. Yes, P-Dog. RM. Oh, yeah, we have the links blocked, so we can't. A mod would have to share it. Sorry about that. But yes, as far as intros go, I think that was really good. And now we're going to get into something a little meatier. So, a little meteor. So, We Are Bulletproof Part 2 is next. So, let me get that queued up. Oh, thanks, Luna.
We are bulletproof. We are bulletproof. Bulletproof. 이름은 정국. 스킬은 전국. 학교 대신 연습실에서 밤새 춤을 추고 노래 불러내. 너희가 놀 때 난 꿈을 집도 하며 잠을 참아가며 매일 밤새 볼펜을 잡네. 아침에가 뜨는 뒤에 난 눈을 감네. 이젠 잣대와 많은 반대 속에서 부숴버린 나의 한계. 그에 반해 재수족해 회사에 컨택된 속칭 노래 못해 래퍼를 당한 너에게 래퍼라는 타이틀을 쌓지. Everywhere I go, everything I do 나 보여줄게 칼을 갈아왔던 만큼 날 무시하던 많은 사람들 이젠 We shout it out. 나같이 해봤다면 돌을 던져. We go hard, 우린 copy 없어. Click, click, bang, bang. We just sing it like click, click, bang, bang. We just sing it like 나같이 해봤다면 돌을 던져. We go hard, 우린 copy 없어. Click, click, bang, bang. We just sing it like click, click, bang, bang. We just sing it like 이리 내놔. 긴장했다. 끝판대자. We are bulletproof. We are bulletproof. Bulletproof. 아직 아무것도 없죠. Still young, and rapper man. Yeah, I don't know, that's nothing. Go 믿어. 하지만 이제 필요 없어졌지. 넌 아직도 아마추어. 난 메이저. 그렇게 섞여. Rap monster. 말처럼 금을 같이 무슨 비트는 간에 나 싹 집어삼켜. 진실한 이름값 얘들아 이리 와 이리 와. 하나 아이돌의 반전 하하. 힙 무신분이 형들은 불가능하다 해지 boy. 똑똑히 파이어를 파서버려 마치 표치고 안 파서보자 이제 레디 boy. Everywhere I go, everything I do 나 보여줄게 칼을 갈아왔던 만큼 날 무시하던 많은 사람들 이젠 We shout it out. 나같이 해봤다면 돌을 던져. We go hard, 우린 copy 없어. Click, click, bang, bang. We just sing it like click, click, bang, bang. We just sing it like 나같이 해봤다면 돌을 던져. We go hard, 우린 copy 없어. Click, click, bang, bang. We just sing it like click, click, bang, bang. We just sing it like 이리 내놔. 긴장했다. 끝판대자. We are bulletproof. We are bulletproof. 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 Bulletproof.
Okay, so that was We Are Bulletproof Part 2. Iconic, I have to say. First thoughts, reactions. Involuntary.
First reaction.
Trip.
The first reaction is that it's insane to watch this after the Grammy announcement.
Oh, that's wild. Especially their lyrics about, staying up and working hard, and then it's like, you guys did it. You made it.
Yes.
Yeah,
you keep making
totally like emotional whiplash, but also like on some level I can't take them seriously either because it just makes me giggle. It just makes me giggle.
I agree, because it's like you know, like probably at the time they probably seem more intimidating, I guess, because you know they just started, so like that was their only concept. But like now, after knowing them for so many years, I look back at this video, I'm like, God bless their cotton socks.
The socks were hilarious. They look. I was actually looking at the outfits, and I was wondering. I was like, I wonder if this helped, you know, because they're supposed to like not get sunburned or tanned or anything. So wearing tights under their socks, under their shorts, was functional in that sense. I don't know. It's just a weird thought I had.
No matter how many times I watch this MV, at dance break at the end, it's always gonna be epic. It's always gonna be this amazing level of trust, this something you haven't seen before done, not in a video and certainly not on stage. Like no one takes that risk on stage.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, because I remember they were saying they used to do that live. Because I remember when they were reacting to their debut stage, they said like, how did we not pre-record this? Like it was insane that they were doing stuff like flipping over each other, and like the hat trick, like that was all live. Like none of that was pre-recorded. So like they must have felt like so much pressure to actually get that right on stage.
And
I think like how frustrating it was that only one music show recorded it correctly, because the first time they performed it, they did like the music show didn't know how it's gonna be, so they filmed it from the front so you wouldn't see the trick. But after that, every performance they did, they filmed it from the side, so they showed what it was, and it must have been so frustrating for them to put all that effort to make it like this incredible dance moment, and that you can't see where the hat is coming from, and that it seems like he's catching the hat and all that, and have it ruined for you after putting months and months of work into it. Must have been so frustrating.
Yeah, they remembered to mention it all those years later, so I'm sure that was.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention Yoongi's album review notes here and just kind of get your thoughts on it, because I think it's really sweet. For this song, he mentioned that they put a lot of thought into it. They had fun. They've worked really hard during their 3 years of training. That basically, and I quote, they put their blood and sweat into it. So that's interesting. He said he likes the lines, you bought the rapper title because you couldn't sing.
Yeah.
And it's actually right here in his first verse. And basically they just talked about how they wrote a lot of what they wanted to say, not to disparage others, but because they were confident in themselves and how hard they worked for this. So I think that's pretty neat, neat of them.
Yeah, they're like saying, okay, if you work as hard as me, then you can throw stones. But if not, then sit down and be quiet.
Right, yeah, and that's the lyrics here. Throw stones at me if you've ever worked as hard as I have. Mm-hmm. And here,
yeah, it's quite a biblical reference.
Oh, right, yeah, that's true.
Because it was the story of that woman who I think committed adultery, and then so she was supposed to be stoned to death, and then Jesus came, and then she begged him to help her, and then so like he went to all the men who were there throwing stones, and he was like, he who has not committed one sin cast the first stone, and since all of them were sinners, they all had to leave. So like he's basically like kind of like almost like a similar story where it's basically like, if you've done something as much as me, then like throw the first stone. But obviously because nobody can, like no one's gonna throw the first stone, which again emphasizes their whole bulletproof persona that they were trying to get going for them.
Right. And it shows how much they valued the time and work that they put into it. They knew that they were staying up later than most people. They knew that they were working harder than most people. I did want to mention, because you were talking about the dance break, the hat trick here at the end of it. And, you know, people call that the killing move in, you know, a K-pop song. And I think what's interesting about BTS's debut is they promoted with this song as well as No More Dream. And in No More Dream, there's also like a dance break, and with the foot, I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
The walking on other members.
You know what you mean.
But yeah, that, and which is also a huge killing move. It's all very impressive. And I've seen lots of K-pop debuts just watching music shows, and not many are coming in with that level of surprise and sort of like throwing down the gauntlet of what, like, hey, this is what we can do, you know? So like, and actually I'm looking at the lyrics here. It's RM's verse, and he says, "I fully live up to my name," which was Rap Monster at the time. But yeah, come here and take a preview. Plot twist presented by a mere idol. And I'm sure that was a big conversation, because we've heard it a lot, about their place as an idol versus a rapper. And I wanted to get your feedback on that, on idol versus rapper, and sort of based on these lyrics, they clearly already have opinions forming about it, from what I can tell.
Oh yeah, for sure. When it came to the whole idol versus rapper thing, there was always so much controversy about that, and there's still conversation going about that to this day. And for a lot of people, like, idols stereotypically cannot rap. They're not experienced with that type of thing. And, you know, it's, you know, going back to Yoongi's verse, how, you know, some of these idols only rap because they can't sing. There's no genuine love for the genre. There's no respect for it, simply using it as a concept, and not really because they have stories that they want to tell. Like, there's no self-expression for some people's lyrics. And that's why they received so much criticism when BTS debuted, because like a lot of their peers who were in the underground sphere, they thought that BTS were selling out, that like as soon as you become an idol, you just like instantly become inauthentic because you're part of this whole manufactured industry. And all of it is really based around stereotypes, even though there can be some truth to it. And so, like, not only were they like getting so much pressure to debut, but also to prove themselves to people who've already turned their backs on them from the underground scene.
Right.
It's also Jackson talked about it when he was with Namjoon on Knowing Brothers, right? That was it.
Yeah, that's the show name.
Yeah, so Jackson was there, and he was like, "Oh, no, do a rap battle, you and Rap Monster." And Jackson said, "No, I'm just a guy who raps. I'm not a rapper." They were so confused by what he meant.
And that's yes, that was on a Problematic Men, that show.
Yeah, Problematic Men. Yes, not Knowing Brothers, Problematic Men.
It was.
Yeah. So yeah, he talked exactly about that. That not everyone who raps is a rapper, and that stigma that if you are an idol, you can't be a real rapper.
Right. That's hard to admit, so props to him, I mean, for even going there with it. Yeah, I don't know if this is, because I wanted to mention the music video, and really when you watch the music video, you know, it's just mostly like them tough man shots and things like that. But I don't know if this ever meant anything, but about the floor looking like a chessboard.
Yeah.
I always wondered if that was on purpose or if it was just an aesthetic thing, if they're, you know, playing chess. But I think yes, even if they don't intend to, because they're always like 6 moves ahead.
Well, they certainly checkmated us.
It always feels like everything in BTS MVs is planned.
Right. No, same.
Would you just imagine like Bang P's ancestors in like 1845 planning BTS's comeback?
Well, and you know, we can call them the kings of callbacks, really, because I mean, even this song that we're talking about, "We Are Bulletproof Part 2," it's not it's not even, you know, it's a part 2. It's a callback to a song that most audiences wouldn't have really heard, We Are Bulletproof Part 1. And I was looking at the lyrics here, and it's really a lot about people getting ready for their debut. Let me see if I can quote here something for you. They're so funny. Sorry, just scrolling past.
I think it's genius to call it like the first real song on the album to be "We Are Bulletproof" Part 2. Because you're immediately going, "Where's Part 1?"
Right.
Yeah, they're honestly genius for that.
Let me see.
Yeah, I remember when I was first kind of diving back into like their older albums and like first being like introduced to them and looking at Too Cool for School, I was thinking, okay, well, where's Part 1? And I literally like searched like Spotify everything, and I had to like dig for it until I found it and listened to it.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Just a very interesting journey, and I think it's a really cool choice that they decided to include Part 2 instead of Part 1 on the album.
Yeah, it's almost like a follow-up to the Part 1 where, if I'm seeing this correctly, you know, all 7 participated and had their little verses, and so this is sort of the follow-up to that. Yoongi's talking about when I quote, excuse the language, when I catch the bastards who copy, doesn't matter if they're Hubei or Sunbae, I'll poach them. So a lot of strong words here.
Yeah, and then he also referenced that in his first mixtape, August D, because that was like the first part of his second verse. So like, it's just amazing how much continuation that BTS has throughout like their entire discography.
Right. Even some of the sounds here that we're going to hear we're going to hear again later on in their discography. Already, I think, you know, the intro was sampled for Ego, and they reference the lyrics to a lot of these songs often, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, and then another thing with like Part 2, like I just find it so cool that they even put Part 2 like that. It was even a callback in the first place, because I don't know if this was intentional or not, but I feel like maybe they put it in there to show like their music, like their journey with music didn't just start with like BTS. Like it's always been a love for music, and they've always been like sharing their own stories since like they became trainees, not just like when they debuted. So I thought that was like really cool.
That's an excellent point. Go ahead, Omer.
I always wondered about the hat trick. If you know, in football, hat trick is when the same member of the team scores 3 goals in one game. So I was always wondering if that's like them saying like, we're gonna be the MVP here, we're gonna be the best.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, it seems every detail is really thought out. I mean, every aspect of BTS. So I feel like, yes. Oh, is it that somebody said hockey? It's like that in hockey. Is that a phrase?
I know football, like soccer.
Oh, okay.
It's also in hockey.
Because I was gonna be like, maybe that's why Yoongi was wearing football pads.
Yeah.
Different football. Taking a look at this, hat trick is also used in hockey. Interesting. Good to know. Canadian.
The lack of budget for these beginning music videos is very funny to me. Very interesting.
Yeah, they really were doing the best they could, for sure. Work those camera angles.
Although BTS does anything, it's like use their budget the best of their abilities. Like you could give them like $5 and half of a graham cracker, and somehow like they would make the best music video out of that.
Exactly, 100%.
There is a part in Hobie's verse when he says something like my profile. I think, I'm not sure, but I think this is a reference to a song by a rapper called Benzino. I don't know if any of you know him. A very good rapper, by the way, in Korea. He has a song called Profile, and he says, I don't know if I can curse here, but anyway, he says, check my profile. And then he says a lot of things that he brags about his career and etc. And Hobie says the opposite. He says, like, my profile doesn't have anything yet, but I will prove myself and etc. So it really shows how connected they are to they knew what was about in the hip-hop scene in Korea and worldwide, but still they, like you guys said, they were eager to prove themselves and to build a very beautiful story, which they did. They still are building.
Right. There's something to be said about that foundation that they laid out for hip-hop and ensuring that all of the members were learning about hip-hop and rap the right way. There's, and that's not 100% accurate, but there's a lot of anecdotes that can be found in BTS World, the game. And one of them that I think is is probably close to the truth is whenever the group finally gets together, they're talking about the song and the sound for their debut. And RM brings all this American hip-hop albums and is like making them listen to it together, like, okay, like this is what we're gonna be listening to, and I feel like that sounds pretty close to the truth of what they were doing to prep.
I think they actually did mention that. I remember Tae saying that. He said that like Namjoon would sit them down and like he would pull out like a USB or something of like 30 songs and they would just sit into them. And I thought that was like so endearing, honestly, the fact that like Namjoon wanted to teach them. He wanted to like show them about hip hop. Like it wasn't just like like a couple of the members, like he wanted all of them to like wants to share the genre with all of them and he wanted all of them to appreciate it. And I thought that was really cool.
Exactly. Yeah, there's like an interview from, I think it's about a month after debut. I'm looking at it right now, but like this was posted in 2019, even though this is much older than that, where they were talking about that and they were saying, they're a hip hop group, but some members are not so used to hip hop. And Taeyong mentions that, Namjoon gave him like a hand-picked list of songs to listen to, and so he would listen to those on his way to school, and they also would sit down, like he would sit them down and turn on a beat and ask each member to write rap lyrics, even if it was a self-introduction or a single word. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't read that interview, so that's not just endearing, but really cool in terms of how much they cared about like doing it right. So that's nice to hear.
I think also Bank PD said that in order to be in BTS, like Big Hit could have provided you with vocal lessons, rap lessons, like anything you wanted to improve yourself as a performer, you could have had. And he left it to the members themselves to decide. That's why Jungkook, for example, said he didn't have vocal lessons because he chose not to have them. And he said that they only, like, in order to be a member of BTS, you had to be amazing and like hardworking and all that, but you also had to love hip hop. He said that was a requirement to be a member of BTS. So I think like getting that foundation of the classic hip hop and the songs and the fact that the other members cared that everyone would like it and put that effort into it and like talked about hip hop and made it like this study of a culture of music of all that, and like put all that effort into it is kind of incredible.
Yeah. And it's cool that we as fans are having these discussions too, because I feel like not everybody digs that deep into knowing what hip hop is and why BTS does some things that they do that are inspired or that come from hip hop culture. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's okay that not everybody knows, that everybody is interested in, but I think in order to understand a bit more of their musicality and the things they do, it's very important that we understand those things too.
Yeah.
Absolutely, especially when there's so much influence in the music early on in this, especially in the first at least 4 albums. I mean, it's there forever, but heavily influenced on the first 4 albums.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I would actually also say that this strategy that Bang PD and Big Hit Entertainment about them trying to seek their trainees and like these resources in order to make them a long-term presence, that really helped them to believe in them and to develop their ability later on, which basically, if we look at it now, like 7 years later, 8 years later, he basically just like redid the whole entire business model for K-pop and artists in general. So now that's the reason why BTS has this like global stage presence. Not only are they like singers and dancers, but they have this whole entire like storytelling and music and visuals, and it just really like re-energized the whole entire music industry scene.
That's so true. They really changed everything. I mean, I've even noticed so much just from the time.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I've just noticed so much in the time now. They've changed everything. So many other groups now are influenced, but not just other K-pop groups, but even Western artists are changing their business models, are changing the way that they approach their social media. I've seen so many artists changing just pretty much everything, and a lot of it definitely feels inspired or influenced by BTS and what they've been doing in the past few years. You know, like light sticks obviously have been popular in the East for a long time, but they really haven't been a thing here. And then right before the pandemic, we started seeing a lot of people using and selling light stick, light bands type things. Mm-hmm. Just things like that that I've noticed. And social media engagement, of course, is a big one too.
And photo cards and the multiple versions of albums too.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's just wild. It's wild to see. They've really changed the landscape of music. I had one anecdote I wanted to share here regarding the credits. This is just something I found that I thought was pretty cute. So if you look here at this last credit, I mean, obviously it's pretty much P-Dog all the way down the line. This is just kind of funny, like a group project. But this one gentleman here, James F. Reynolds, so I looked into him as well, and he actually recently did an interview talking about how this all came to happen. He's actually a British producer, mixer, and is also a baron, which is kind of interesting. Just a baron who does music in his free time. But he had no idea what K-pop was. He wasn't in the scene at all. And turns out that Bang PD had heard one of his songs just on his own that he had, and he liked it so much, he was like, I need to know who the mix engineer, who mixed this. And so he looked him up and reached out to him and contacted him. He's like, hey, I'm working on this, this project for this group. Like, will you, work on this track? And he has worked with them from this song up until recently. I think he worked on Stay for B. But that was how this happened. And this was his first work in the K-pop world and has now been really, really active in mixing and engineering other K-pop songs, not just BTS. But I thought that was really interesting how, one, it shows that Bang PD was really resourceful. He was very much ready to go out into the world, and he's like, yeah, I like that. That's what I want. And, very good with those types of things. And then two, it kind of shows their loyalty to their in team, and I think we'll see that in the credits throughout this album and future albums, where we see so many of the same names, and it just speaks, I think, to the loyalty that they have of their in-house production team. And now they've expanded a lot and worked on other, you know, they bring in a lot of outside producers, but even then, though, if they like working with them, they'll reach out to them and work with them more. So I don't know, I just think that it's really nice to see that they care. It's not just, I mean, within their in-house team, it is, I guess, as we've learned, who does the best work, you know, whose work fits the album the best, but it's still, you know, within friends and their people, if that makes sense. That's pretty cool. So let's wrap up on Bulletproof Part 2. I'm sorry, did I miss
There's
something?
just one tiny thing I want to mention.
Yes,
about this
please.
song. There's a lyric that Namjoon does that says it goes from impossible to I'm possible. And that's something that's so, like, it starts here, but it comes again in so many other BTS songs, like, that he divides words into the whatever it's called, and the actual word, like in respect, it's respect. And he does that numerous times throughout BTS albums. For example, Amaze and Maze, and all that, and selfish and you know what I mean. Anyways, and I think it's something that for non-English speakers, that English is not their first language. When you learn English, you learn that words have that pretext, or whatever that's called, that pre thing.
Like a pre-chorus?
And when you what is it called?
Is it like a pre-chorus? Is that the word? Or I don't know.
No, yeah.
No, I don't
But
know.
you
It's
get
fine.
it.
Ignore me.
But all that im and an and all those.
The prefix.
And so when you learn those words and you learn to separate it, and you look at it separated. Prefix, yes.
I figured it out.
And so when you see it and when you study it and then you put it into English, it's like, it's kind of, your mind already goes to it. I had a teacher who would say that the first time she said the word disheveled, she said it as disheveled, because you learn it as a prefix. You learn that there are all these prefixes and that they come first. And so I think it's kind of interesting that, I don't know if that's like the reason behind it, but like that a non-English speaker mind immediately like separates it into two words, because you learn it that way. You learn to notice the prefix because it says so much about what the word is gonna be, whether it's positive or negative, small or big, like all these tiny prefix and end fix or whatever, like all these. That's when you study English. That's how you study it. So I always thought that it's kind of cool to see him like do it right from the start and keep doing it throughout his entire songwriting history.
That makes sense. And actually, I've always wondered that, because there's so many phrases that RM comes up with in his songwriting that I would never in a million years even think to consider. So many like word plays that, I mean, I'm a native English speaker, and I feel like there's so many things, like you mentioned, like love is a maze, and then even his jokes, like I keep thinking of, you know, like puppies, like puppies. So I, you know, things like that where I just wouldn't my brain wouldn't go there. And I think you might be right. Yeah, impossible to I'm possible. That's not something that would have come easily to my brain. And I mean, it's not just because I'm not Kim Namjoon. I think it might be because of the way he's looking at the language as well. Yeah, a poet, for sure.
And he does it in Korean too, like with the Trivia Love. So it's just he really looks at what a word looks like and examines it. He's not just writing it. He really looks at the shape of a word. And I think I've never seen anyone do that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It looks at, he's really seeing the word. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so cool. I'm glad you pointed it out because I didn't notice it here. The first impossible to I'm possible. It's very cool. Ugh, they're just so cool. Okay, and speaking of cool, so let's go to the not song next, which is Skit Circle Room Talk. So it's technically not a song, but we'll still listen to it. And just kind of get the vibe of it and look at the lyrics afterwards. So yeah, let me get that set up and enjoy.
흰색 와이셔츠에 빨간 넥타이 내가 얼마 따라 했었는지 그만하지. 그래가지고 형 안 어울리시. 야 훔쳤다 이제 가자. 아니 가자. 아뭐 훔쳤다고 그래요. 야 오늘 쟤 안 가. 시원하게 한번 째봅시다. 그래가지고 레몬 그래가지고 에픽하게 좀 더 입어봐.
아니 그래가지고 그거 듣고 이제 딱 시작했다니까요 제가. 말 그대로 플라이 했다는 거 아니에요.
이슈가님 또 그거 듣고 랩 시작했지.
다 똑같아. 진짜
똑같았어.
그러면 뭐 우리는 플라이 들을 때 우리 호빈 뭐 했는데?
뭐 하셨나? 난 또 이제 랩하는 사람들과 이제 또 남다르게 또 나는 춤에 미쳐 있었지. 그렇지. 학원 댄스. 뭐 지휘도 마찬가지일걸?
아니 당연하죠. 혹시 여기서 무용을 꿈꿔본 사람은 없나?
없어.
무용은 없어.
방금 정적 들었냐?
한 명도 없어.
방금 다들 고민했다고.
1초 정적.
태영이 너 꿀이 뭐였어?
저 3년간 색소폰 했었어요.
근데 왜 지금 안 해?
색소폰?
입이 아파서.
입이 아팠네. 입이 아팠네.
가식적이다.
저 입이 아팠거든요.
입이 많이 아팠나 보다.
엄청난 이유다.
마음이 아프다.
아니 그 진영, 우리 형은 꿀이 뭐였어요, 형은?
나야 뭐 그냥 우리 아빠처럼 7시에 출근하고 저녁 6시에 퇴근해서 딱 마누라가 차려주면 밥 먹고.
나도 그게 제일 좋다고
어떻게 보면 이게 최고인 것 같긴 해. 이게 짱이지.
척이더라.
힙합이 다 뭔성이에요. 그게 짱이지.
그렇다고 힙합을 버려요 왜요?
시원하게 버렸구만. 시원하게 버렸어.
우리 아빠 욕하지 마.
버리고 그래?
우리 아빠 욕하지 마.
정국아 너는 꿀이 뭐였냐?
그래 뭐.
저요? 저 기억 잘 안 나는데.
이놈의 새끼를 써만들어 뭐하노? 동아리 들어왔자 없애보는 거 해야겠네. 이 생각 들어가.
알겠습니다.
All right, so that was outro, hello, Skit Circle Room Talk. We couldn't see the words yet, so here are his official translation of the skit. To summarize it, basically, the boys are hanging out in a classroom and just chatting, talking about skipping class, and then getting fussed at. Well, they're talking about their dreams as well, about what their dreams were, which is probably the main reason why it's here, I guess. Or at least that's my thing. I think that's the meaty part. What do you guys think is important about this skit specifically? Why did they include these words, these lyrics, or words, I should say, at this point in the album?
I think it's because it comes right before No More Dream. Let's talk about the dreams that they had growing up, and whether like how they've changed. Like you get to see the evolution of their dreams, and by putting it the first album right at the middle of it, it's like you get to see like that it's not already not that relevant. And honestly, listening to their dreams, like when they list it, they mention just how irrelevant they are even then. So to see him like start with new dreams and like go on this journey to find their dreams, I think it's kind of cool.
Right, which I guess fits with the No More Dream title track.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm just reading through these lyrics as well.
I also think like there's something very old-fashioned about this album, and it comes in both in this part and in the song Like, a sort of mentality that just doesn't really, like, I can see it. It's mentality, it's just that they're so young back then, and this album is part of the whole school year trilogy, right? So they're so young, and to see like the dreams, oh, I want to be like my dad and go to work and come back and have my wife cook me dinner, and like that sort of old-fashioned thing that you see your parents and that your parents instill in you, that that's what you should aspire to have a safe job, that you go, you do it, and then you come home to this perfect little house, and to go from that, like what your parents tell you or instill in you by being like that, to realizing that maybe that's not the path for you, and that you need to find yourself and find what you want to do. And so to shake off those old dreams and have no dreams, and then find a new one.
I think that summarizes it perfectly, actually. Yeah. Just the
And
transition.
again, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just saying it's like a transitional song, both
Yeah.
in the album and in life.
Yeah, and again, there are conversations about hip hop in this track. Like they talk about hip hop. They say they were listening to "Fly," which is a song by Epic High. So the theme is here again.
Right, and they mention here specifically, like, you know, I started rapping as soon as he heard the song, and then talking about throwing it away for, a family, basically. Which, it is kind of sad now, like, reading it. It is hard to keep both your career and a normal family life, so they just threw it away coolly. But yes.
I would say that as well. Not only do we see BTS's talking about hip hop, but as well as their personality. This is really an insight of them bantering, them joking around, and at the time they came from a small company, so I guess this is one way of connecting with fans as well. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Right.
I feel like you're in the room with them.
Yeah, just laughing and joking along.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say, is that especially if you're not a Korean speaker, you'll listen to and you're listening to the album and this song comes up, quote unquote, but just hearing them speaking to one another and how they talk to another, and just you can totally hear their personalities shine through their words, even if you don't know what they're saying.
That's true.
Yeah, basically the start of their authenticity, who they are, this is us, which wasn't really what you see in other K-pop idol groups, what they're doing, at the time.
Yeah, I agree. Cause like I remember even like the way everyone's talking about how like their personalities like sort of bleed into not just like the songs but also the skits as well. Cause I remember there was that interview that they were doing with was it Vanity Fair or something like that, the one where they were like talking about all their studio albums, and then like Jimin mentioned how they tend to like emotionally synchronize with all of their albums, as in like their like albums basically encapsulate how they're feeling at the time, which I think is a perfect way to like describe like how ingrained like their actual like life stories are into these works, like from the very beginning as well, where like a lot of this really is like their genuine worries and concerns. It's not just like songs for the sake of making songs, but like this is actually like what's going on in their life. So I like how even from the beginning, like you're already getting peeks into like their past and like what their aspirations were before they even debuted.
I got chills. Yeah, just how they are so ingrained with their music, and their albums. And it's really, I don't know. It's special. It's like a piece of their soul is in here. Yeah, Joe mentioned, I don't think it's on purpose, but this skit always gave them BU vibes. Honestly, I have always kind of felt the same, but not in like a BU sense. More like, well, okay, let me explain. Because I feel that the BU, the concept and idea for the BU was already set in place before their debut. Like they were already working on it. They had ideas, but they just didn't really have the resources to make it happen. They didn't know if the longevity was going to be long enough to even do a story like that. But I do think that they had a sort of loose idea there. And, we see in even the BTS concert trilogy, where it was the Red Bullet Tour, BTS Begins, and Wings, which is episodes 3. In the Red Bullet Tour, we see almost this exact scene play out, and it's sort of the origin of the BU as well. So I always think it's kind of like a parallel story that's beginning to be told in their albums. There's, BTS's real story and then BTS's BU story, which is, starts off the same, which is just a bunch of guys who came together and became friends, and then, in the real world they're just doing music and stuff. And in the BU it takes, it's doing something else is going on in there. But just in general, I always thought that this, with the teacher yelling at them, it always gives me that BTS and the storage unit and getting yelled at there as well. I don't know if anyone else felt the same way, or if it's just one of those things, it could be a reach, but it's a thought that I've always had.
I definitely felt it after watching the VCRs for the Red Bullets concert. When
Yeah,
you see
for
the
sure.
teacher yelling at them, talking, that's the moment I thought of.
Yeah, it's almost the exact like scenario. And then reading the notes too. Courtney, I know you dive more into the BU as well. I don't know if you've ever kind of made that connection, or if you have felt that it's just totally separate.
I think it was intentional in the sense that once they started creating, the more fictional side of the content, that also has roots in some of their real content. So for me, it's definitely retconned. Like, I don't think they planned it from the start. It was, now we have the ability to create this. Let's create this, parallel story that's us playing fictional characters, but it has roots in things that we've already put out there, and, roots in things that were real for us, maybe. And so, they go back and they work in all that stuff much in the same way that we had, Boy in Love and Boy with Love, where it's a reflection of, something in the past. Even with, Bulletproof Part 1, Part 2, The Eternal, it's always going back to something in the past. And so I think that's a nice, we call it intertextuality. It's like it's a nice connection between their own body of work.
Right. That makes sense. I don't know if this is an actual, a term or something psychological that makes people more invested into something if it's I don't know. I just wonder if there's something there that creates a connection in the brain for a person whenever they walk into a part 2 situation, or they walk into this callback Boy in Love or Boy with Love, and then find out about Boy in Love. Just the way that they're constantly calling back. I wonder if there's a feeling that people get because of that, like a sort of there's a bigger picture here story. Maybe there's like a word for it, but I feel like not that it's like a tactic, but it sort of is interesting how it's always tying back and always calling back and almost urging people to go back and look at the beginnings. You know, how many people that were new armies went to go see Boy in Love for the first time after finding out its connection to Boy with Love, that sort of thing. I don't know.
Do you mean meta language? Is this?
I'm not sure. You tell me. Tell me what meta language is, and then I'll tell you if it's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think it is like when a body of work references itself. So I don't know if that's what you're trying to say.
Maybe that sounds right. I always thought that's sucks you in. Somebody said it sucks you in, like when you have a movie with a complex plot, right? Like I'm big on that kind of thing, like Game of Thrones and big multi-layered things. So that sort of is definitely my style of content.
I think it's pretty cool that they do that from the songwriting point of view, but I also think, and I don't know if Cecilia would like to talk about that, I think she's the best person to talk about that it's excellent for their brand. Like it's an excellent, I will say strategy. I know many people don't like this word because it seems like it's not genuine, but strategy is also just something that it's thought. It's not necessarily entirely spontaneous. It's also thought. So I also think that it's a great thing, like for their brand as musicians, as artists. Like it always, as you said, it makes fans keep coming back and knowing their work, interacting with their work. So I think it's really special.
Yeah, I would agree because in an interview with Bang PD, he was asked about the importance of like the storytelling part and the brand IP or brand intellectual property, and storytelling within the K-pop world is very complex, and then what BTS has done is even more complex than what it already is. So he says that they didn't really necessarily start with a grand plan, but because they wanted to convey a message to the audience through BTS, they thought that the storytelling was the best way to do so. So fans, as well, just their response was just immense. That although he understands that there are people, armies within the fandom who dislike storytelling and the expansion of the BU, but there's those that really enjoy it. So therefore, they can't let go of this opportunity to expand their business. So personally, Bang PD said himself that he loves storytelling and expanding narratives into a universe, and he read quite a lot while growing up.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a business side of it, but it's also his hobby.
Since you mentioned storytelling, I would just like to say that Courtney recently published an article about BTS storytelling. So if you guys want to know more about that.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that for a second. It's like a part of for a month there where I kind of blacked out some of that stuff because it was stressful.
Yeah,
if you want to go read it, go to a Bangtan Scholars Twitter account, and it's right there. It's one of the latest research papers we actually tweeted out.
Let me see. Maybe I can drop a link here in the chat as well. I thought it was interesting while I looked this up. I couldn't find the songwriter credit. I mean, it's not a song, so I guess it makes sense, but I couldn't find like who wrote the words to the skit. So it's a mystery still. Did they just do it themselves? Chat? Is it impromptu? We'll never
I know some of their skits are impromptu. Like they just like set up, they just start recording and then they just talk. So maybe that might have been the case.
Yeah, that would make sense because, yeah, they didn't write it at all. And it does seem pretty casual. Like, maybe they had some things that they planned to talk about, but, yeah, overall. I can also hear them smiling, too, whenever in the skit where it's, I thought that was cute, where it's...
Yes, oh my god. That's
like,
just the best part, when you can hear them, like, physically smiling.
Yeah. Okay, is it the conference link? I think that's the latest. That's the pin tweet. Let me see.
Oh, I think Cecilia dropped it in our Discord.
I actually put it.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the story is BTS's brand, and the brilliance of their storytelling lies in its open, far-reaching structure and its adherence to key aspects that create engaged audiences through social media, participatory culture, and the network image by Courtney. Quote.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm excited to read it. Like, okay, hold on. Let me... my brain just started reading it anyway. Okay, hold on. Let me just stop. Okay, so wrapping up on Skit Circle Room Talk, it's time for the big song. The debut song. So let me cue it up. Yeah, the song.
The only debut song to exist, by the way. There's no other debut song in K-pop. There's only
no
that
other
one.
ones. This is the only
Thanos snapped out of existence
the
when this
titular
one came in.
debut song.
Okay, perfect. Let me cue it up. Yeah, I'm excited to read that now too. Okay, ready? And let me play it.
What's up? This is Bangtan exclusive. And the coolest kid in the world. Woo! BTS. Rap monster. Jin. Jimin. J-Hope. Faye. And who do we got here right now? Sugar. Jungle. 야마 내 꿈은 뭐래 야마 내 꿈은 뭐래 야마 내 꿈은 뭐래 네 꿈은 child I want a big house and big rings but 사실은 I don't have any big dreams 난 참 편하게 살아 꿈 따위 안 꿔도 아무것도 안 하잖아 다 똑같이 나처럼 생각하고 있어 까먹을 꿈만천 어린 시절 걱정 마 멀리라도 갈 거니까 알았어 엄마 지금 독서실 간다니까 지금 네가 속에 누가 보여 I gotta say 너의 길을 가라고 단 하루를 살아도 뭐라도 하라고 나약하면 담아줘 왜 말 못하고 있어 공부는 하기 싫다면서 학교 때려치기는 겁나지 이거 받은 거야 준비하는 벌써 설정들은 제발 좀 너희만 살아가지고 유리 멘탈 보이 stop 자신에게 물어봐 언제 네가 열심히 노력했냐고 야마 내 꿈은 뭐래 야마 내 꿈은 뭐래 야마 내 꿈은 뭐래 네 꿈은 child 그래 거짓말이야 거짓말이야 힘이 심이야 이 시선 차이야 왜 자꾸 딴 길을 가래 야 너나 잘해 제발 강요하지 말아줘 내 꿈에 뭐래 내 꿈에 뭐래 고작이 꺼내 지겨운 same day 반복되는 미래 어른들과 부모님한테는 바뀐 꿈을 준비해 장래 희망 넘버 원 공무원 강요된 꿈은 아냐 구해 말 구원 무슨 시간 낭비 야자에 도지구는 아니 똑같은 사회 반항해 꿈 특별사면 자신에게 물어봐 네 꿈의 프로파일 억감을 받던 인생 네 삶의 추억가 되어봐 지금 네 거울 속에 누가 보여 너의 길을 가라고 단 하루를 살아도 뭐라 고작이 꺼내 살아가는 법을 몰라 날아가는 법을 몰라 결정하는 법을 몰라 이젠 꿈꾸는 법도 몰라 눈을 떠났다 이제 춤을 춰봤자 다시 꿈을 꿔봤다 너 꿈을 대지 마 춤을 대지 마 거짓말이야 심이야 이 세상 차이가 왜 자꾸 딴 길을 가래 야 너나 잘해 제발 강요하지 말아줘 To all the youngsters without dreams.
All right, so that was No More Dream. The video. Any first reactions or thoughts looking back? I mean, I feel like we all watched this a lot, but I guess in the context of an album review, what do you think?
They're doing their absolute best.
Yes, that's one way to put it for sure.
They're doing their best and the most.
We love to see it.
Yeah.
I love the song so much.
There's a lot of notes here in the lyrics as well.
Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on though, I remember Taehyung saying in a recent interview, I wish I could remember which one it was, but I forgot. It might have been one of their ones with when I remember it, I'll say it. But like in one of the interviews, he was saying how the song was originally going to be called "End of the World" and not "No More Dream." So like I did wonder about like the thought process behind that, like what made them want to call it "The End of the World."
Interesting. Do you think before or after the lyrics were finalized?
I don't know. It might have been kind of like in the middle of that process, but I'm not sure how they go about choosing their titles, whether that comes first or like that comes last. I'm not sure what the process looks like for them when choosing like song names.
I actually completely get it. Like, it's the end of the world. Because growing up, like, think about it. It's the same with the bit where they talk about their dreams, right? You grew up thinking, like, your parents instilled in you their dreams. And all of a sudden, there's something that's tempting you that's different. You have Epic High coming in and like, showing you hip-hop and like, you're standing in front of like a fork in the road, right? You can either walk the path that your parents chose for you, or you can set out on a new path. You don't have a dream yet because you haven't had the chance to actually think about it. You don't know what's waiting for you there. You know your parents aren't going to like it. You know society isn't going to like it and support it. And it's scary and it feels like the end of the world. Like you don't know what to do and you don't know what to choose. And when you choose to go down that road less traveled, then it feels like you're alone, or in this case there are 7, but it feels like you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you're taking that leap of faith and you don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I can definitely like feel that sentiment because like I guess for like maybe when they originally had that song title End of the World, maybe like their sort of line of thinking was like the moment you don't have a dream, that's kind of where your world ends. Maybe that was their thought process, which would definitely make sense when you put it back into context.
Definitely. And I love that now, like in Map of the Soul both like the entire era, they went back to this trilogy, right, to the Skool trilogy, and they like revisit old concepts with maturity now, and all of a sudden No More Dream became Dream, and which is both a Carl Jung concept but also allows you like, okay, you did that growth, you walked that road, and now you have a new dream and you can see hope, and you have this like optimism about you that you didn't have when you were at that point at the teenager or when you're just starting out. All of a sudden there's hope.
Yes. One thing I do like about BTS's music is how much like I said before, how much continuation they have where it, like when it comes to, because obviously like these are real life stories that are in their albums where like they can talk about something but they never really close that chapter. There's always you know, revisiting topics at a different time. And I think that that's a really good thing about their music that I do enjoy.
Yeah, I wanted to point out this part in the lyrics because I just have read this note and I think it's really cool. This part right here, it's not a forced dream, a relief pitcher in the bottom of the 9th. And so it mentions the word relief pitcher, which in baseball is when like basically a new pitcher comes in because pitchers get tired and it's at the bottom of the 9th, so they've been throwing a ball super fast for a long time. So a relief pitcher coming in at the bottom of the 9th has to, you know, carry the game to the end. And so here it's saying that that Yoongi raps part of the song and then Hobie finishes it. So it's not just like they're being each other's relief pitcher in the rap as well as just mentioning the word. And then I think in the video, it's the part with the baseball. So it's like just very three-dimensional.
Genius.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting as well. And then they're talking about fastballs. So yeah, that makes sense why the baseball is there. I didn't understand before looking at the lyrics and the steps. It was like, why is this baseball zoomed in all of a sudden? But yeah.
I am learning so much from you because I don't know anything about sports. So I'm always lost in the sports metaphor. So I am learning a lot from you.
That's didn't you tell us about the football, like soccer, about the hat trick?
No, I had just learned that too.
Okay, we're all learning together. But yeah, this really seems to be sort of no more. I mean, it is their title track, but it also really feels like it's their call to arms, basically the call to the banner for fans. It's really their anthem of what they're truly talking about. I think in one sweep, they're talking about doing what you want, ignoring people that say otherwise, and just, you know, be confident in your convictions. If you don't want to do anything, don't do anything. If you want to do this, do that. And, you know, just follow it up. Oh, I went too far.
I think it's kind of incredible that when you look at this album and like they had their debut, right? So they could choose any song from the album, not just to be their lead single, but to debut with. And they chose like, and we'll probably talk about it later, but like is such a safe R&B, has a cool melody. It's about stalking someone, but it's about love technically, and it's such a safe option. Instead, they chose to go all hip-hop warriors and stick it to the system and go against like show that they're not from this big company, but that they're the underdogs, and talk about all the stuff that no one talks about. No one today talks about it in K-pop, definitely not back then. And just to show their passion, and it's not their eyeliner, it's their like passion and their inner self coming out, and all these feelings that adolescents feel and young adults feel, and they just decided to put it all out there despite the fact that they had a safer choice to safer than that.
The eyeliner does make a bold statement though.
It does.
It's very loud, yes. But yeah, it does take a certain confidence, level of confidence to come out swinging with this as your debut song and with the personas that they did come out with. You know, really looking back, it's kind of a big undertaking for young kids, and they handled it so well, being those figures that people needed at the time, because I see a lot of, you know, hip-hop concept K-pop sometimes, and where they're doing the same like tough guy routine, and you don't really feel the toughness behind it. So this is definitely different in that sense, where you can feel the rough, like raw. They believed that their personas were who they were at the time, which is interesting. I'm just looking here through our notes.
I mean, do we want to talk about the music video and how it looks?
Yes. Go ahead, Luna. What would you like to point out in the music video?
Well, I think just comparing it to We're Bulletproof Part 2, like it's obvious that with the minimal budget that they had, this is where they you know, really put their zhuzh into it, is the technical term. Because this is their debut song, right? So they want to make sure that it looks sort of good. But our setting, we really only have like one or two main settings, and that's like inside the quote unquote school that we see graffitied everywhere, and then also just kind of around the bus in that like outdoor school area, I guess, where you would, you know, have recess or, you know, just hang out, have lunch. But I think it's really, you know, obviously they come crashing in on that bus, crashing into our lives too, which they really, you know, had something to prove. So the video, this music video in particular, is nothing short of making sure that they know that they need to make an impact, because they knew that people would be looking down on them, not coming from a big three company. Obviously we have lots of school imagery. You know, it's their costumes, their outfits, you know, make me giggle a lot too. You know, fashion in 2013 was not maybe the best, but I think just, you know, all the school imagery and all the stuff like that really hammered in the point of like, yeah, we are like the Bulletproof Boy Scouts, and we're here like for the youth. So they were not shy on imagery at all whatsoever.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job in like just cementing their identity with both No More Dream and We Are Bulletproof Part 2. Like, they definitely had that consistency going for them, and they wanted people to know what exactly they were here to do. And, you know, they did that quite well. Like, for, again, like they were so young at the time, and the way that they were executing these concepts are just like insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's definitely a mature, very mature concept for people who are only really in their teens and like early 20s at the time. And so kind of like that really intense concept mashed up with this like school theme is just really, really interesting to me, that, you know, that's kind of like the direction that they chose to go in.
One thing Yoongi said in his album review was that a lot of people who had listened to the song said it reminded them of the 90s music. That sort of asked the question, quote, why life made us this way, we're going to rebel. But, you know, instead was about college, like they took it more from like a college perspective, whereas 90s music was more like maybe bigger picture, I guess. But he said that they were really thinking of college when, since that was such a big, you have to go to college. And I mean, I definitely grew up with that sort of mindset. It wasn't, you know, do you want to go to college? It's which college are you going to go to? So a lot of people grew up with that sort of household where it's like you don't have a choice. You have to go to college. And just thought that was relatable because at least I related to it a lot.
Yeah, I think that like definitely is relatable. Sorry, what were you saying? Go ahead.
So for those of you that may want to like look more into the production of the music video, the company behind it is actually called Zanny Bros. And not only did they help film No More Dream, but they did No and War of Hormone and Come Back Home. So they've done a lot of music videos for a lot of K-pop artists like Girls' Generation, TVXQ, Epic High, Neil. And this company was founded in 2001. And now they're just like one of the most distinguishable MV production companies in Korea. And the two of, in an interview, they said that when they produce these music videos, they say like people these days just watch the first part of the video and then they just skip the rest. So because we're living in that like really fast-paced digital era, so people will widely react to an MV for about a day. So they try to create a lot of like 1 to 2 memorable scenes for each clip. And they do everything from like directing, filming, color grading, planning, production, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work. And just like how you guys were mentioning that you guys could pick up all of the metaphors, they actually really, unlike movies, MVs don't have lines, so they give room for interpretation for fans to have a knack at interpreting their MVs. So that's why they use metaphors so that fans can make a sense of them and then they find their own ways. And sometimes they even quote that the fans have a better analysis than what they originally intended for.
That's funny. I just picture them like, oh wow, like I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that fits. Because we think things a lot. We have a lot of thoughts.
It's like Jungkook, he's like, Army will understand. Army will figure it out.
Right. Somebody had mentioned because earlier there was a call, like a reference to another rap song, and then here it seems that they've done it again with the See Me, See Me. Yeah, Anna, was that your note?
Yes, when they say "simi simi ya," it sounds like "shimmy shimmy ya," which is, I mean, there is no confirmation, but it's most likely to be a reference to a song by ODB called "Shimmy Shimmy Ya." ODB is a rapper that used to be a member of Wu-Tang Clan, a very important, influential hip hop group. And there is another reference, but I couldn't yet find it or remember it. When in the Money Money, there is a reference to another hip hop song too that I've been trying to remember that for days, but I can't. But anyway, there's a lot of reference in the entire album and in the song specifically.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely like another quality of hip hop where there's a lot of references to previous music, and sample usage, which again are like more key elements that you'll find within BTS's music, which just shows how much like hip hop has influenced them, even when they're not even like experimenting with hip hop per se. So yeah, like they're huge props to BTS for that. And also they did call back to We Are Bulletproof Part 1 in the beginning of the music video, because when they were introducing themselves, like, and you saw like their names flash on screen, you could hear We Are Bulletproof Part 1 playing in the background. So another callback.
Right. I hadn't even thought of that, but yeah, that's so true. Speaking of callbacks, there's one lyric here that I just think we should mention, which is the I want a big house, big cars, and big rings, and how that phrase has changed and evolved in their lyrics since then, and why. I just think that's just really cool that he omitted the "I want" in that one performance. And then it's mentioned again in Home, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Home.
Home and also Shadow.
Yes, and also, was there one more? I feel like there was one more reference to it he did somewhere. Oh yes, it was wasn't it What Do You Think on his mixtape?
It was on his.
Yes.
It is What Do You Think?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so like you can see how the phrase has evolved over the years because like again, like the thing that's kind of like Yoongi's thing where he will take specific phrases and make callbacks to them at some point in time, but like not as a way to just like repeat the phrase, but like it might be something that he wants us to remember or maybe something that he wants to take and like I guess transform because like it's not even just like big house, big cars, big rings that he does callbacks to, but also like what we were talking about before with like We Were Bulletproof Part 1 where he was talking about like the Sunbae Hubei line that he references in August D, or where he references things from like Tomorrow. Like there's so many times he does that, like, and it shows that like he pays attention to a lot of his older work and wants us to like also wants other armies to pick up on that and like wants us to sort of I guess go back to that like those like places that he's referencing so we can listen and trying to figure out what he's trying to say, what kind of message he wants to give.
And this is a very hip hop thing too. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I just can't help noticing and mentioning that. That's a very common thing in hip hop too. There are many rappers who have this. Like you say, one rapper has a lyric that it's their thing. Like the only one that I can think right now is Nicki Minaj. Again, I don't know if I can curse here, but anyway, she has this lyric that she repeats in a lot of in her songs and etc. And I feel like the big cars, big house, big rings, it's Young's thing too as a rapper.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because it really shows a difference in mentality as well. Because in some ways it's almost like, yeah, I got this, I don't need it, and now what? What do we do now that we have big house, big cars, and big rings? So it can be braggy, but also sort of reflective, which is nice, especially the way he uses those words.
Like also speaking of going back and repeating stuff that you've done before, BTS performed both No More Dream and We Are Bulletproof Part 2 in Mama last year. It kind of feels like 2020 didn't happen and it was just a few months ago. But in Mama 2019 they performed, right? 2019 they performed both these songs. And it almost felt like they were like, you weren't there for me in 2013. Well, now you're gonna get it in 2019 when I'm on top. You're gonna like it.
Yeah, like their song choices, especially for performances, like they're very deliberate. Like, cause I remember when for that year when we were watching Mama, I was like they picked like two very, very old songs. Like imagine like showing up at Mama and like BTS are doing like NO and We Are Bulletproof Part 2. Like you would wonder what's the motive behind it, but they always have a motive for that. And I do think that it like is exactly like what you were saying. Like I think that's spot on how they wanted to sort of bring that back to just show like, look where we are now after all those times that people were mocking us and looked down on us. Like to revisit those songs, like I think is just so like it was definitely needed.
Yeah, and it's just like they're saying like, look how you looked down on us back then, but look how amazing we were back then. And obviously, it also connected to the Carl Jung Map of the Soul era, so it's just perfect. They're brilliant.
Yes, how they accept all parts of themselves. I think that's like really important. That's like one thing I definitely enjoy about like having like being able to dissect like theories of the personality like within their music. Cause I mean, I was a psychology major for my undergraduate degree. So like when I was sort of analyzing like BTS's like concepts and like the music for like Map of the Soul, like I was just all over it. So I would like to say that like probably like when it comes to stuff like that where they embrace all parts of themselves, it kind of reminds me of like what are called schemas in psychology, which is basically defined as like a network of all of your different traits. And so like I feel like every once in a while BTS just like takes one part of their schema and just kind of brings it out into the open for other people to see. Like I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I was also going to mention about the mama thing, because back in 2013, mama was the only one that didn't give them a Rookie of the Year award, or recognize them in any way. In fact, actually, I don't think they were invited to mama in their first year. So I think it's even an extra little sprinkle of spice on top of the throwback in 2019. I felt like it was also a message to mama directly, especially the Dionysus snake in that performance. I don't know, I just felt like that whole performance was a big message. And you mentioned the No More Dream, the ties to the Map of the Soul. And I wanted to, we didn't really talk about this, but I kind of wanted to put this out there and get your ideas, because in the On video, it mentions Dream, No More Dream. What is that about? What do you guys think that's there for? Because I really didn't know. I don't know still.
Well, for me, like when I saw that sort of callback at like the very end of the video where it went from like No More Dream to like just Dream, I think because like BTS was saying in like their interviews, On was kind of like almost like a diary entry of like the past 7 years as BTS. I think that maybe like that whole No More Dream to Dream was like sort of their transition over the years. Like No More Dream was probably like maybe like the start of their journey, and then like at the end, like they took that and turned it into a dream. Because like I mean, for BTS, like even though they did have goals and aspirations, like they obviously never expected to ever climb that high. And so like the dreams they had, like the reality was basically bigger than what they had actually dreamed. So their reality actually surpassed the dream. So I think maybe like that whole transition at the end was meant to show that, where like they went from like having nothing to like having something to grasp onto. Because it was kind of like when they were climbing that sort of Pride Rock looking mountain thing. So that's kind of what I imagine it to be, like that kind of ascent.
Yeah, I can see that. It definitely feels like it was a message of some sort. And I think I can see them saying, you know, like you said, that they surpassed all dreams. And I'm sure they've changed a lot of the way that they look at things, a lot of the way they think about goals and aspirations. Because, you know, I feel like a lot of like in No More Dream, you're looking at things like where, you know, it's sort of two different mentalities. And I think they do this a lot in their music in general, where, you know, like in Spinebreaker or even in Converse High, you know, the rappers both have different opinions and so they say different things within the same song. So like here, you know, it's really talking about not having a dream, but then part of them is part of their story in this first album is also to dream big and to dream a lot. So, you know, it's good to not have big dreams, but, you know, you can also. So it's sort of like the final step, I feel like, in what's the word? satisfying each of those different thought processes and mindsets of dream and no more dream, I should say. At least that's what I think. But I'm not sure. I think that's what's kind of amazing about it is everyone can pull their own interpretation of everything, and it is probably right. Like if you're getting something from the music, then that was the whole point, I guess.
I already talked about what I thought about it. I think it's that you in No More Dream were lost. You didn't have aspirations. You didn't have something that you were after. You had to find your way. And in No More Dreams, it feels very pessimistic because it's scary and it's frightening and it's difficult to set out on a path of your own without the support of those around you or of system or of society. Like choosing to be an idol, or even on a more bigger scale, like as a teen when you decide to go on your own path, it's frightening. So I think it comes from a very dark place, and now with that transition from No More Dream to Dream, you come to it from a much more positive and optimistic place, and all of a sudden you can think about those, have the time to plan ahead and think about goals and think what you want to reach, and it comes from a much more self-assured way, like you're much more confident in your abilities, so you can actually dream in a positive way. And it also connects with the Young's map of the soul. It's dream and the ego are kind of tied because the ego is what happens when you're complete in your inner, like the way you see yourself, like you both embrace your persona and your shadow and you're aware of it and you don't fear it anymore, and it all becomes a part of you, and your dream is a part of that as well. And yeah, so I think it's that optimistic, positive way of looking at, like, you're practically standing at the exact same place and planning your life, but you're coming to it from a much more self-assured way, and you're much more confident in yourself and your abilities.
Yeah.
I completely agree with her.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the positive aspect of it is something I think I'd missed, but yeah, that makes things more sense. And it seems in general that BTS has been very adamant about approaching things in a more positive light lately, like even the negative, and I think that's been extremely helpful to me, at least as a listener. So yeah, no more dream in it with a smiley face. No more spikes and burning skateboards. I'm here looking at the credits for No More Dream as well, and it's nice to see the members here in the production credits as well as the songwriting credits. I think it's nice that they allowed them. It sounds weird to say allowed because, you know, it's just music, you should write it, but since so many labels are so controlling, it is allowing them to partake in their music and writing here. Early credits. Moving on, we have an easy break. Oh, and then there's James again. With interlude. So let's take a few seconds to listen to one of my favorite interludes in the discography, and we'll be right back. short and sweet interlude. It's just great. I listen to it quite regularly, actually. One thing I wanted to see if you guys picked up on was the ambient sounds, and honestly, they've been kind of heavily using them this whole time throughout the album, like a lot of like background noises, but you can really hear the ambient sounds in the interlude since it's just instrumental, like the pages turning and things like that. They're also heavy after or heavy on the like the turning pages, and then sorry, I just read something.
It's okay. I think it's also very interesting that they decided to do an interlude on such like a short album. Like, it just kind of very much plays again into the idea that, you know, these albums are part of stories, and you know, you should listen to the whole thing, and each part is important.
Yeah, I like the breather after No More Dream as well, where it's like, just take some time and vibe, because that was a lot to take in. But yes, I think Omer needs to step away. I know we've gone way longer than I intended to, and you warned me about this.
Unfortunately.
You did, and I didn't listen, so that's on me.
I just want to say, like, that listening to interlude, it kind of feels like watching them work on B. That you would just watch them work. They wouldn't say anything, but you watch those vlogs, those live streams on YouTube, and it kind of feels like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to go. This was really fun. I hope we do this again.
Yes, thanks so much for joining. I will pick up the pace so we can get in more. We're almost done. We're like,
just 2 more and Pat and
we are honestly like just about halfway through, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I mean, it is kind of like the interlude where we can, it's kind of a good stopping place if we need to stop. Since it's getting into 2.5 hours now, but we can take time and we can revisit the rest of the album, because I really want to give plenty of time to talk about the hidden tracks and whatnot. There's just a lot to say, I think, and really talk about, because there was one specifically, like that skit that I didn't. I think it might be a good idea. So if everyone's okay, we can stop here, and then pick this back up in another week whenever there's time. Not next week because it's Grammys week, but another time if that works for everyone.
I mean, I don't mind. What do the viewers say?
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. Thanks for organizing.
Yes, have a part 2.
Yeah, people saying they would like a part 2.
Okay, to stop and reconvene.
Yeah, this is a series that we're gonna do. I guess every month we're picking a different piece of, we as in our magic shop and also our panelists, we're picking a different piece of BTS's discography, and we're going in chronological order to focus on and to really like dig deep into and to analyze. So this month, because it's March, it's Yoongi's month, so our essentials for this month were B, August D, D2, and of course 2COOL4SKOOL, which is what we're analyzing. So next month we'll be streaming something different, and we'll be focusing on Oh, Are You Late Too, and some other fun BTS albums.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, this was definitely a test for me, because I've never put anything together exactly like this. So I really wanted to get an idea of how the flow goes. So now I definitely feel more comfortable when I understand how much there is to say now, time-wise. So that's good to know. But yeah, so let's stop here and then hopefully pick up and finish the last 4 songs before the end of the month, so that we can start fresh with "Oh Are You Late Too" and then time things better, or split things up in advance. But thank you so much for joining. I feel like we said so much and still it's like not enough, because there really is so much to talk about. But thank you for being here, and thank you for your time and your brains and your thought processes, because I'm definitely looking at things a lot more differently than I have in the past, and that's with me feeling some type of research army way. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I learned a lot like through this as well, because like, sometimes you just get so caught up in like the newer music that they're putting out these days, which is equally as incredible, of course, but like sometimes like you forget how good their older music is. Like it's always best to just like take a moment to just sort of step back and like dive into like their older works, because I think just being able to talk about it today just gave me more newfound appreciation for like how good it was.
Also being able to talk about it, not just write, not just read, actually talk, discuss, hear ideas. It's so much fun.
That's definitely nice for me too, because normally like I'm just writing stuff. That's all I do. Is write stuff.
Same.
Having a conversation is just so much fun. Just because that's what we are. We're having a conversation, but it's a very intellectually stimulating conversation.
Yes.
Plus, it's interesting because everyone has like little tidbits to offer, little, nuggets of information that I say other people, but probably just me didn't know. So it's nice to hear all those little juicy bits of information. So thank you for bringing those as well. Okay.
Thank you for inviting us.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, everyone's
bring this
awesome.
together and organizing all this.
I know, I'm just so happy to have you all. It's like so weird to say, but like big fan of everyone's work. It's really cool to see like, and then hear it live, hear what you're thinking live as well, because I've seen what you guys write out, so it's cool to watch. But yeah, then on that note, I will end the live, and then we can plan for the finale of 2COOL4SKOOL. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in and watched. There will be a replay available. I'll probably edit it down and then upload that to YouTube and share with the panelists as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you for
Have a great Sunday, great week.
Period. They're getting that.